The Florida Panhandle, known for its sun-drenched beaches and laid-back charm, became the backdrop of a tragedy that sent shockwaves through the nation. In the quiet town of Crestview, a routine traffic stop escalated into a fatal encounter, leaving a young U.S. airman dead and a community grappling with unanswered questions. The incident, unfolding on a warm July evening, highlighted the strained relationship between law enforcement and the citizens they swear to protect. Officer David Smith pulled over 23-year-old Ryan Scott for a broken taillight. What began as a routine interaction quickly spiraled out of control, culminating in the fatal shooting of Scott. The young airman, known for his infectious smile and dedication to service, lay lifeless on the asphalt. As news of the shooting spread, a collective gasp of disbelief and anger filled the air. Residents found themselves thrust into a national debate on police brutality and the use of lethal force. The shooting death of Ryan Scott served as a stark reminder of the power wielded by law enforcement. It ignited a firestorm of debate on race, power, and the lines between justice and excessive force. As investigators pieced together the events, a cloud of suspicion and mistrust settled over Crestview. The shooting became a rallying cry for justice, amplifying calls for police accountability and transparency. The incident served as a harsh reminder that tragedy can strike anywhere, leaving behind shattered lives and a scarred community. Weeks turned into months as the investigation into the shooting of Ryan Scott dragged on, leaving the community on edge and desperate for answers. Sheriff Eric Aden, known for his measured demeanor, found himself at the center of a storm, tasked with unraveling the truth behind the tragic events of that July night. The weight of expectation pressed down on Aden as he meticulously reviewed the evidence. The findings, released to the public in a somber press conference, sent shockwaves through Crestview and beyond. Sheriff Aden announced that Officer David Smith had been terminated from the force and would face criminal charges for his role in the death of Ryan Scott. The evidence, including dashcam footage and eyewitness accounts, contradicted Officer Smith's initial claims of self-defense. The footage showed a terrified young man, his hands raised in surrender, moments before being gunned down. The video footage became a chilling indictment of Officer Smith's actions. Sheriff Aden's decision to fire and charge Officer Smith exposed deep divisions within the community and the nation at large. The case ignited passionate arguments about police accountability, racial bias in law enforcement, and the use of deadly force. The streets of Crestview, typically quiet and filled with the sounds of children playing, transformed into a sea of protest signs and impassioned voices. The death of Ryan Scott, a beloved member of the community, ignited a wave of protests that spread far beyond the small town. Day after day, people from all walks of life marched in solidarity, demanding justice for Ryan and calling for police reforms. The protests, fueled by grief and outrage, became a powerful expression of the community's pain. They served as a reminder that police brutality transcended race, age, and socioeconomic status. Chants of "No justice, no peace," and "Say his name, Ryan Scott" echoed through the streets. As the protests gained momentum, national media descended upon Crestview, amplifying the voices of the grieving community. Legal experts and activists called for greater transparency and accountability within law enforcement agencies. The case became a rallying cry for systemic change, prompting a national conversation about police reform. In the aftermath of the shooting, a palpable tension settled over Crestview, a town grappling with the weight of its newfound notoriety. The once familiar sight of police cruisers patrolling the streets now evoked a mix of emotions, from fear and distrust to a longing for the sense of security they once represented. The blue wall of silence, a code of loyalty often perceived as protecting officers involved in misconduct, became a subject of intense scrutiny as the community demanded transparency and accountability. The case of Ryan Scott tested the very foundation of the blue wall, exposing the complex dynamics within law enforcement agencies. While some officers defended their colleague, others, troubled by the events, wrestled with their conscience. A few courageous officers broke ranks and cooperated with the investigation, pivotal in the case against Officer Smith. Their willingness to speak truth to power, despite risks to their careers and safety, sent a powerful message. These officers, hailed as heroes, became symbols of integrity and a testament to the power of individual conscience. The cracks in the blue wall, exposed by the Ryan Scott case, signified a potential turning point in the relationship between law enforcement and the communities they serve. The tragic shooting of Ryan Scott ignited a fierce debate about the delicate balance between ensuring public safety and holding law enforcement accountable for their actions. The incident forced communities across the nation to confront a fundamental question: how to reconcile the need for law and order with the imperative to protect individual rights and ensure justice for all. The case served as a stark reminder that the pursuit of one should never come at the expense of the other. Calls for greater transparency, accountability, and community oversight of police departments gained momentum, prompting lawmakers and law enforcement leaders to reevaluate existing policies and explore new approaches to policing. The quest for balance between security and accountability required a multifaceted approach, encompassing legislative action, community engagement, and a fundamental shift in the culture of law enforcement. As the legal proceedings in the case of Ryan Scott unfolded, the community of Crestview braced itself for a long and arduous journey towards justice. The trial of Officer David Smith, initially scheduled to begin in the fall, faced numerous delays, prolonging the agony of Ryan's family and keeping the wounds of that fateful July night fresh in the minds of many. The courtroom became a battleground for truth, where prosecutors presented evidence of Officer Smith's excessive use of force, while defense attorneys argued that he acted in self-defense. The trial, broadcast live on national television, captivated the nation, with legal experts and commentators dissecting every piece of evidence and witness testimony. The case, closely watched by civil rights organizations and law enforcement agencies alike, took on a significance that extended far beyond the borders of Crestview. It became a litmus test for the justice system's ability to hold law enforcement officers accountable for their actions, and a measure of the nation's progress in addressing issues of police brutality and racial bias. As the nation held its breath, waiting for the verdict, tensions ran high in Crestview, with community leaders urging peace and calm regardless of the outcome. The long road to justice for Ryan Scott was far from over, but the pursuit of accountability and the unwavering commitment of those fighting for change continued.